Robert Plank Show, Episode 40, Self-Help for Internet Marketers and Entrepreneurs. What to do when no one else seems to get it. Hey, so this is Robert Plank, and before we get the show started, I just want to say, I know this is a little off topic, a little kind of what you might not be used to, but I want you to listen anyway, because even if you're not into any of the, psychological, self-help, motivation kind of stuff, I know you get stuck sometimes, I know you get burned out sometimes, I know you procrastinate sometimes, I do too, so I have a few things to say. We're not going to get, political, religious, or too out there, but I do have a few things that I think will really help you, especially today, this week, this month, and in the coming year. So we're going to get the show started. Self-help for internet marketers and entrepreneurs. Cool, with that out of the way, Robert Plank here, and I want to reveal a really big secret off the top of my head at the top of this show, is that, when, at least for me personally, when I put out blog posts, podcasts, webinars, stuff like that, more often than not, it's for selfish reasons. More often than not, it's my own therapy, it's my own getting clarity on what our business has been doing, what's worked, what's not. I talk about copywriting, I talk about membership sites, and a lot of it is just getting a handle on where things are and where I need to go, what needs to stay the same, and what needs to change, alright? So it's more of therapy for me to put these thoughts into words, but think about that. Whatever it is you're feeling, if you're a little nervous about this next product launch, if you're kind of grumpy that you're not making the money you deserve and want, then, what if just putting that into words kind of gave you some focus and made you realize what it is you need to do? And more often than not, you have something half done, right? You have a product half done. You have this idea for the membership site, and all you need to do is set up a sales letter, set up WordPress, put a plugin on there, which might be awkward at first, but you find the right course, you find someone who's already done what it is you want to do, and big surprise, you just follow the steps in your own, in your own unique situation. Whatever you have planned, it's not ever going to be perfect. Well, you know what? It'll be perfect in your head. It'll be perfect in your imagination, but how do you get paid for something that's in your head? You don't. So it's easier to edit crap than air. And I'm no psychologist. I'm not a speaker or anything like that. I'm just a computer programmer. But as a computer programmer, it's our job to break problems down into bite-sized pieces. So what I do is I working from home for several years. I set my own hours. I'm my own boss. But the only drawback to that is my income depends on how well my business does. Not on how many hours I put in or even how hard I work or how badly I want it, but some of it's up to luck, some of it's up to what I do, some of it's up to the price I charge, my conversion rate, my list size, my traffic, the money I put back into the business, stuff like that. And so it's easier to break down a couple of things that I need to focus on as opposed to like trying to eat this whole giant elephant. So I put out these things like, software, WordPress plugins. So one thing I put out, and I think it's been out for like over 7 years now, is a pop-up plugin, right? You have a web page, a pop-up appears on the screen, someone fills in information, clicks a link, stuff like that. You've seen pop-ups. Well, I've coded some of them. So when I do that, I break down the steps I need to take to get there. I say, okay, well, first of all, I need to make the little tiny box that comes up. Then I need to make it where someone can put a message in that box. Then I need to make it where there's a delay until the box pops up. But I don't just jump in and suddenly, push a couple of buttons and it's done. I have to figure out, well, there are all these things that I could do, right? All these fancy things I could have in this piece of software, but if you think about it also in like our business, right? There are all these fancy things. Yeah, you know what? I could split test. Yeah, I could put out a book. Yeah, I could run offline seminars. Yeah, I could have, TV ads. But then you think about it and you say, well, there are things I could have that are so far in the future or might not even get to. But what are the simpler things? And most people don't have a website. Most people don't have a domain name. They have an idea. They don't actually have a real thing. I was speaking at a seminar once and I said, how many of you own this video recording software called Camtasia? All the hands went up. How many of you have one video online most of the hands went down. How many of you are signed up to an autoresponder service like aweber.com? All the hands went up. How many of you have one authent page like I go to right now and go to one of those web pages that says, here's this free report, I'm going to enter my information, fill it in, and get access to something? Almost all the hands went down. And so, I don't know what brought you here to this podcast. If you're just looking for just some motivation in general, we're talking about motivation for people who are working from home, building their own online business, because this is a unique situation where most people, they just don't get it. And if you ever tried to talk about your business to, I don't know, coworkers, friends, family, spouse, or even talk about where you're stuck, they're not going to get it. And you know what really pisses me off? Just not to get off topic. What pisses me off is when I talk about, I'm like, well, my income is X, and I want it to be 2X, right? I want to double my income. And the response is usually something like, well, you know what? You should just be happy with what you have. At that salary or whatever, you're at the top 1%. I'd never make that money. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, if I'm not looking to improve and grow, then it's one step away from backsliding into something worse. Or the response is something like, well, you should just outsource everything, and that way you can make the same amount of money while you just relax. And I'm like, well, I don't work that many hours anyway, but I want to improve what I have. Or they say, well, if you're giving half your money away to this business partner, well, then you should just cut him out of your business. It's like, yeah, well, then my income would drop anyway. So what we want to do is, we all have these problems. There are about 1 million ways to solve them. We want to break them down into bite-sized pieces. We have a course at incomemachine.com if you're the kind of person who doesn't have any kind of internet presence. And we say, well, what we want you to do is find a niche, get a domain name, get a web host, get this opt-in email sign-up page set up, get this autoresponder follow-up sequence set up what's called a sales letter so you can take orders, set up a membership site so that you can deliver those orders, and get traffic going. And so that way you're just knocking out one little step at a time. And there are the actions you could take. That's called the outer game, right? You get online and you say, I'm going to set up these Facebook ads, I'm going to email my list. That's your outer game. Then there's your inner game, which is how you personally feel and how confident you are. And I didn't realize how important this was until we started providing one-on-one coaching, right? Lance and I have, my business partner, Lance Thomas-Sherwood, and I have a platinum program, which you can't sign up to right now. But basically, we get on the phone or get on a webinar meeting where we share our screens once per week for 1 hour. And, we have different kinds of people, and they're all above average, exceptional people that have been through the program. But so many times we say, okay, well, you need to do this and this. And then they have all these reasons for not doing it, and we say, well, this reason doesn't matter because of that, but then they invent these new reasons. And so I realized very early on that most of our issues, probably 80% of our issues, are these inner games, these mindset, basically pitfalls, right? And they're things like, well, let me just list a few, right? Putting the cart before the horse. You can't separate the forest from the trees. You can do 50 things but not one. Information overload, fear of failure. So here's what I mean: is we say, or they say things like, well, I can't build a list because I don't have any emails to send people, but I can't send emails to my list because no one's joining my list, right? Or I can't make a website because there's no traffic coming into the website, but I can't get traffic because there's no website. They get stuck in this chicken and the egg. They need everything planned out, and life's not perfect. Life's not going to go according to your plan no matter what you do. Or they get distracted by all these things, right? Like, I need to have a automated webinar system. I have to have a funnel. I have to have a one-click upsell. I have to have one-click downsell. And we just say, okay, well, that's good in the future. But how about for right now? You have one thing for sale. Right? Even if you had a button that said, I will set up your WordPress site for you for $1,000, and it was just, that's all it said, and it was just a button. That's something that you could improve on from there, but at least you wouldn't get paralyzed and just, chasing your own tail and thinking about making 50 different sales letters when you can't even make one sales letter, right? So, long story short, You are your own worst enemy. And once we realize that, we can kind of improve on ourselves and realize when we get stuck in a rut, we get burned out. You know what all burnout is? Burnout is just you feel like nothing you do will change the course of action you're taking. And when it really gets kind of scary, well, for a couple of things, well, it's easy to get around bad company, right? It's easy to get around a bunch of grumpy people, or people not making money, or people who just are self-defeating, and then you become just like them. It gets to the point where it starts to feel good to complain, right? It starts to feel good about saying, well, everything's a scam, there's no way to make money on the internet. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That means that if you keep saying something enough times, then you'll make it true. So if you say that you're not going to make any money, well, then it's pretty easy to believe in that and then to feel good about not making money, which is not where you want to be. You don't want to be like feeling bad about yourself, but you should reward yourself for making money. Making money should feel good. Getting clicks to your site should feel good. It shouldn't be something where you're nervous about, well, everybody's going to refund. Well, no, they won't. If you're making a bunch of money, sure, there's stuff like taxes and other expenses, but you shouldn't be second guessing yourself and saying, well, I don't want to make $10,000 because I have to pay some taxes. Well, that's just how life is. You shouldn't let the taxes you're not going to make prevent you from actually making the money to pay your taxes, if that makes sense. And there's all these different things like, I used to be in the Boy Scouts, right? And there's this thing called the Eagle Project, which is like the highest whatever achievement you can make, blah, blah, blah. And you basically have to do like a community service kind of project. So one guy made like a spotlight. One guy made park benches. I planted like 50 or 100 trees in a junior high school, like in the play area, stuff like that. And there's all this stuff where you have to like get donations from the community and get everyone to help out and plan all this stuff and get permission to do all this and that. But it's basically like a volunteer project that gets all its money and supplies from donations, and then you and your troop do the labor, and then there's this thing that improves the community. But then after you do that, you have to write this big report, make a binder, documenting everything you did. And the problem is that for everyone who's done it, including me, is it takes 6 months longer than it has to take. Well, why? Because you put in all this work, all this momentum, all this stuff leading up to this one day usually, where you do all this stuff all in one day, and then suddenly you like drive off a cliff, right? You say, well, I've been going 100 miles an hour up to this one day. Now the project's done. Now it's like the excitement's over. Now I have to go and write what I did, and you just procrastinate for 6 months, and if you just had done it the next week, it would have been done in a week. But that's usually how it is for all of us, right? We lead up to a product launch, lead up to a webinar, lead up to, the product's done, and it's like there's this brick wall. I mean, like we slow down until we hit the brick wall, and that's why most of us have a product that's either 10% done or 95% done. It's never 100% done, and I want to get you past that, okay? And there's all these ways we could go, which I don't want to go, right? With psychology and triggers and anchoring, or there's these sayings, and I guess, some of them are more helpful than others. Have you ever heard the phrase that we are what we repeatedly do, or you are what you eat, something like that? And so if you keep thinking about how everything sucks, well, then things are going to suck for you. And even if things aren't great, if you're honest with yourself and you say, okay, well, I'm in X amount of dollars in debt, and I'm paying this amount of money, and if only I would be able to double that, or if I was able to put an extra $1,000 towards that, then in X number of months, then that would be paid off. Or if I have a mortgage, and if I put an extra whatever $1,000 into that, then that will help me out, right? And so it's fine. You shouldn't be in denial, and it's fine to know when things aren't working, but then be honest with yourself and know, okay, well, this isn't working, but then here's the positive outcome. Here's the action I'm going to take. So I'm not in denial, but I'm also not loving how miserable I am, which is a weird thing to say, but we've all been there, right? And like I said, this is a therapy session almost, right? And I'm not a psychologist, but we've all been there, including me, of having the pity party and all that, which is a fine to do for a while. But you get to a certain age, and you should start realizing like when you get stuck in these patterns, and even when the pattern's coming up, and what to do to get out of it. And so if you're having the pity party, it's like, okay, well, have your little feeling sorry for yourself session, and then now what are you gonna do to get out of that or to move forward and do something better? Your income is the average of your 5 closest friends. This is one of the, I think it's like a Jim Rohn saying, but it's true. It's the weirdest thing. If you hang out with poor people, you're going to start thinking like them and acting like them. Your income will drop. You hang out with people who are more successful and who are where you want to be, then your income will increase. So, I mean, kind of funny how that works. And so if you hang around people who are full of resentment and victimhood and being negative, and I mean, and the thing, I don't know, the reason why I focused on this is because, like I said, with our Platinum program, sometimes we come across some really, really negative people and we have to get them out of that. And you know what, too, is when I mean, if you're on my email list, and if you're not, go to robertplank.com and sign up. What we do is we put out basically a lot of membership courses and WordPress plugins, and I will send out lots of emails. I don't have a lot of fun because I don't want it to be just like, some boring thing. Sometimes I'll ask people, well, what do you think of this, right? Or why didn't you buy that? And I'll get the most negative stuff. And I mean, I can't empathize with every single person, right? We're all on our own path. But when I see someone and they'll write like 5 pages long reply about how everything sucks and they can't catch a break, and 20 years ago this happened, then they got in a car accident, and then the wife left them, and then they got in all this debt, and then now there's all these medical costs. It's like, I mean, at what point does it become you just continuing what's been happening to you? You know what I'm saying? And if you have this attitude of everyone's out to get you, going back to the self-fulfilling prophecy, well, then it will turn out that everyone is conspiring against you because that is what you yourself have set up. There's a saying that goes something like, being poor is a choice. And it's one of those things where it's kind of a mean thing to say, just like if you said, well, being single is a choice kind of thing, but it's like if you're going to have, no matter what, eventually you're going to have some kind of opportunities in front of you, right? Which means that, if you're half-assing it at Taco Bell, maybe do a better job at Taco Bell and find a way to enjoy what it is that you're doing and save up whatever money to get yourself in a better situation. If you're setting up this thing called an online business and you buy all these $5 courses, well, and you find that you're not even applying what's being taught, or if you keep on buying stuff and not using it, I mean, it's not your fault at first because, I mean, it's like all this information is available to you, right? It's so tempting to pull out the iPhone, check the email, there's always something new. Go on Facebook, there's always something new distracting you. And I mean, at first, if you're not accustomed to it, it's like, well, whoa, it's overloading, it's addicting. There's been all these studies. In fact, I was reading the other day, there's a device they sell that's shaped like an iPhone, and it has a mirror on it. So it's not a phone, but it's shaped like one, and it's the same weight. And it's to help people overcome addiction to their phone and taking selfie pictures and stuff. So it's like people can pull this fake phone out of their pocket and hold a mirror up to their face, and somehow it tricks their brain into, like, I guess it's like a nicotine patch but for your iPhone. Kind of silly, but our brains just get stuck in these weird ways. And so a better approach, and the way that you have to be thinking, is an abundance mindset. Okay? So a scarcity mindset means everyone's out to get me. It's all a scam. They're just taking my money. They're holding back the secrets. There's no point in me making money because it's going to pull money away from someone else. Not a really good place to be, right? An abundance mindset is that there's enough money to go around. There's so much money in the world. There's so much internet traffic in the world. There's so many people out there looking for what it is you're selling. You just have to get in front of them. It's a way more positive place to be, right? And I mean, once again, it's important to know when things aren't working, right? And so if you're selling the wrong thing, if you're selling a $1,000 ebook on how to knit sweaters, I don't think that's going to sell, right? If you're selling a $5,000 course on how to save money clipping coupons, don't think that's going to sell. But if you look at a site like, say, ClickBank, and you look at the top sellers, and there's top sellers on things like how to play the guitar, how to learn a new language, how to trade on the stock market, how to flip real estate. These are all these proven hot things, and it's like, well, if you just find your own unique spin on that, that's something that's a hungry crowd that you can get in front of. Another saying, I think is another Jim Rohn, it's that some people say self-help doesn't last. And neither does showering. That's why we recommend it daily. I mean, I haven't I haven't listened to too much self-help in a while, but if I'm really finding myself in the dumps, I either listen to something or something comes to mind like that. And so the thing about that is, I mean, it is a process, and you're going to be in these different states of mind. And at least for me personally, I mean, shoot, if you want to talk about being nervous, I mean, I'm your guy. You can't always tell, but maybe you can every now and then. But it's one of those things where it's like, man, I always hear about people who are saying like, oh, well, like I don't know if this will work, or like any excuse will work, right? If they say they're too young, too old, too fat, too in the wrong country, all this stuff. I mean, I'm a lot like you in that I got a lot of stuff on the inside to overcome, and I think what's helped me as opposed to some other people is that I know when it's not working anymore. And so here's what I mean is that sometimes we kind of have to like cycle around and do different things if we get too used to one thing in particular. So what helps me really well, and a lot of people I know, is if I can't get the things done I need to get done, then I will go back to this thing called 4DT, 4 daily tasks. Every day I just do 4 things. One is a 15-minute activity, and the other 3 are 45-minute activities. And you can even get all the details about this if you go to Time Management on Crack. I have a cool little course there and a report and all that on how to get more out of your day, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day and all that good stuff. But the problem most people are having is just their own inner game, or making things too complicated, or focusing on the wrong things, or like feeling good and feeling bad about the wrong things too. Your brain is this really powerful computer, and if you ask it the right questions and the right phrasing, it'll give you what you want. So here's what I mean. If your question is, well, how do I make $1 million by next week? That's not a good question, because there's not a very good answer, right? Just like if you said, how do I get married in the next 30 days? That's not a very good question, right? But if you ask yourself something like, well, okay, something that's more simple is, how do I get a website that someone could buy from in the next 3 days, right? Now you're asking a good question, because then you can start breaking down the problem like a computer programmer would, like a nerd would, and say, okay, well, this crazy thing called a website. Well, first of all, I need to have a domain name. Cool. Need to have a website there. All right. Need to have a way to take money, a PayPal button. Cool. I need to then explain what that thing is that someone's buying. All right. Now I need to have a membership site on the other end so that when someone buys it, they can get something. So now we're just biting off one little piece at a time, right? And it might be the ugliest looking site, and ugliest looking membership site. But what's really funny about all that is that usually the simple, ugly sites, and even Amazon.com, eBay, Google, Yahoo, those are some pretty gosh darn ugly sites. Gosh darn, or gosh darn, whatever, ugly sites. But they make a bunch of money, right? So the phrasing is really important. And the question is not, well, can I make, here it's going to sound cheesy, right? The question isn't, can I have a site up in 3 days? It's, how do I have the site up in 3 days, right? The question isn't, well, how many sales am I going to make in this product launch? The question is, how do I make 100 sales? And then you start thinking about, okay, well, if I make 10 sales from this, set up an affiliate program for that, if I get traffic from over here, now you're answering the question. But that's one thing that really kind of ticks me off, is just the negative self-talk and the asking the wrong question. And I mean, like I said, our platinum program, this one-on-one stuff, I'm not singling out any one person. I don't hope I don't sound ungrateful, but it's just like, and the other thing too is, depending on where you are in your life listening to this, it's like, if you're not ready to ask yourself these questions, then you won't, and it'll go over your head. But if you're at the point where maybe if things have gotten bad enough, or if you realize that things haven't worked for a long enough time where it's time to change, maybe this will be the most important podcast you've ever listened to. But it's like, if we're trying to help someone with their business and they're like, they have a clear plan, I don't want to mess with their dream, right? So, but then I'll say, well, this thing that you're doing isn't going to work. What would be better is this and that. If there's still a hard no, I mean, there's not much that you could do, right? And I mean, I say this because I've joined, I mean, and the other thing too is I'm so hungry for knowledge. I'll know when I don't know that I don't know everything, right? And there are some areas where I still need help. And so, for example, I joined this copywriting course years and years ago, right? Copywriting means not like draw a circle around a C. Copywriting means make a thing called a sales letter, so that when someone comes to a webpage, they say, well, here's this headline and these words convincing them to buy my course. And I'm always looking for like the next 1% or that little edge over everybody else, right? So I joined this copywriting course, and part of it included the critiquing of my sales letter. I'm like, okay, well, I'll listen to what anyone has to say, and if someone says, here's what your headline is, and here's a better headline, or you should add an audio button, or you should have a logo, I'll listen to that kind of advice, and I'll even try it most of the time, right? And so this guy was going through, and it was like a 2-hour video, and he basically just like went through and had to sit through most of it to get to my part, but he like went through people's different sales letters, and the whole video was like this. Hey, cool URL. I like it. Awesome headline. Best headline. Can't improve on perfection. That's some cool bullet points. Awesome buy button. Perfect price point. And this guy would just go through, and he just said like, well, this is great. And so he was like kind of doing a little, I don't know, people pleasing, but it wasn't helpful. But you know what also wouldn't have been helpful? And I've seen this at even events, at seminars, right? You go to a conference, and the guy's on stage, and he pulls up people's websites. And he says, man, this opt-in page sucks. This is the worst sales letter I've ever seen. And I just kind of cringe. Because it's like, even the worst sales letter, there's always something that can be improved on. And the thing, too, is if you just flat out say that something sucks, or that someone's hard work, or something they spent a year on is the worst thing and makes you want to throw up, it's going to make the person really angry and shut down. So, I say there's the two extremes, right? There's the not helpful, well, everything you do is great, and there's the also not helpful, everything you do sucks. So it's like you want to kind of pick your battles and say things in a nice, encouraging way. And the reason I bring all this up is because when we're talking about our inner game, you have to be a little nice to yourself, right, if things aren't working, but not too nice. You still want to be hungry and motivated and all that stuff, but you don't want to kick back and take a break, and you don't want to feel so dang sorry for yourself. And it's like, well, man, now it's like this whole minefield, right? And I didn't realize it at first, because I just thought like, oh, it's just the way things are. It's like either I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, right? Me, caveman. I know, typical guy, right? But then you think about, okay, well, here's the reason why I'm nervous about this, right? There's this product launch coming up. People might not like it, might not get enough traffic. I'm kind of putting myself out there a little bit. So how do I use that as a useful tool to make sure that everything's great, right? And if I'm a little nervous, well, first of all, I'll realize that that's just me overthinking stuff, and that'll help a little bit, not all the way. But then the other part is, okay, well, I'll use that being nervous to make sure everything's working great. And I'll test the buy button a bunch of times, and I'll rehearse my pitch webinar, and I'll whip up this really cool extra bonus, this extra cool piece of software, just to make sure it'll sell even more. And that'll help me to be almost a perfectionist, but not quite. So self-help for internet marketers, people working from home, making their own business. The average person doesn't get it because you're above average. The average person wants to just be an employee and kind of wait out their time, and hopefully Social Security will still be out there when they're 70 or 85 or whatever that ends up being. But you're better, is you want something, you want it faster, you want more of it and all that stuff, and that's great. But so then, if we kind of switch gears again and turn our direction outwards, this is going to help you in so many ways as far as, webinars and copywriting and whatever it is that you do. Because, it doesn't matter what niche you're in, right? Even if you're in learning language, learning guitar. At some point, you're going to have to be somewhat of a salesman or a saleswoman. You're just going to have to. You're going to have to demo what software you have out there, or demo your checklist of your system. You're going to have to. And this is called copywriting. And just like self-help, right? It's such a bad word. Once you start to get into it, you realize, how did I go so long without this self-help stuff, without this copywriting stuff? And a lot of copywriting and all that, and demoing and selling your own products and membership sites, is getting in the mindset of the person that you want to buy, who you want to buy this thing, right? So if I'm putting out a backup plugin. I'm thinking, okay, well, who's the perfect person to get this backup plugin? And what's most of the marketplace thinking about? If they're thinking about their WordPress site might get hacked, if they're thinking about they want to make a couple different sites, if they're thinking about they want to have all these different WordPress plugins, I have to kind of get into their head, and that way when I'm talking about these things, they can relate to me and I can help them without me telling them their life sucks, without me telling them their life's awesome, nothing needs changing. That way I can kind of walk that line and pick those battles. So we think about copywriting, and I mean, that leads me to, I see people shoot themselves in the foot, and they'll say the wrong things, right? They'll say like, well, you know this thing called weight loss, it's a lot of work. Well, don't tell me that. Now I don't want to buy your course. I don't want to do a bunch of work. Well, this thing called internet marketing takes a lot of sacrifice. Well, I don't want that. I want the secret weapon, the magic box, the silver bullet. I want the shortcut. But then you don't want to say, all you have to do is push this button and $100,000 pops out, right? So we're thinking about that, and when we have these things called copywriting, have these pages, we want to have the before and after, right? And that's kind of, I guess that's like the whole mindset of today's call, is I don't have everything worked out, for sure, but years ago, I would really get stuck, sometimes for months, and I would just get stuck in this cycle. I'd feel so pissed off that everyone was making money except for me. I'd feel so pissed off that I was poor. But then I kind of also like it too, and I also found myself putting my foot on the brake, as another like self-help term, right? Which meant that once I got up to $1,000 a month, I'd slow things down. Whoa, I can't handle $1,000 a month. But once I had a better understanding of my own inner game and my own psychology, I was able to overcome the one foot on the brake, the self-sabotage. And so I want to share with you kind of a real quick checklist that I whipped up. And so here's what's really important about this checklist, is this is personal, private for you. Never share it with me. Don't share it with anyone else. 'Cause I don't know. The problem with sharing this kind of stuff is, like we've been saying, is that they're gonna be either weirded out or shoot you down or be too encouraged. This is just for you, all right? So like, don't second guess yourself. This is just for you. I have a couple quick questions, all right? And let's just say that it's 5 questions, right? Just to get a better handle on yourself. One's about self-sabotage. One's about what you're afraid of. One is about why you got started. And one is about what gets you excited. And one is about what you want to become reality soon. And so let me just read through them, and then we'll get to them. So the first question is, in what way do you sometimes, not saying all the time, so don't have the pity party, what way do you sometimes have one foot on the brake, which means you hold yourself back from what you really want? Number 2, what are you really afraid of, and what sometimes stalls you out? We'll explain that in a second. Number 3, why did you get started in the first place? Number 4, what gets you excited to grow your business and do what really needs to be done? And then number 5, based on all this, what do you really want to become a reality in the next 6 months? So, I mean, if you want to just write those down, or if you go to robertplank.com/040, that I'll have the checklist up on there. But those are the 5 questions for you. And they're just questions where, like, seriously, write the answers down, tuck them away, don't share that, but just knowing a couple of things like that are going to help so much. And I mean, I know some of the stuff's really cheesy, but the first time I heard to pick a goal, right? And that's the thing too, is most people don't have goals. So they're just kind of maintaining $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $1,000 a month, doing the bare minimum. Basically finding themselves a new job. If you wanted that, you should have stayed an employee, right? But there's a reason why you became this work at home, self-employed, entrepreneur, internet marketer, to have something better than what it is you have right now. Okay? So I'll have this checklist for you to seriously write it down, because as soon as I heard to write down the thing you want a year from now in the present tense. I wrote down I want such and such car. A year later, I had that car almost to the day. And lots of people have experienced stuff like this. So, first thing, self-sabotage. In what way do you sometimes have one foot on the brake, and that way that you can overcome it? And you know what? I'll put myself out there, even though I'm telling you to keep yours a secret. The way that I have one foot on the brake a lot of times is this stuff called joint ventures. Is this stuff called traffic. I really wish that I had more confidence in. I like to do more local kind of events, right? I'd like to go and maybe in a somewhat big, not even a big city, but just like close by, like go to San Jose or like Stockton or something, and like rent out a room in like a Holiday Inn or something like that, and just do like a one-day workshop. But I have the confidence to do a 2 or 3 day event with Lance. I have the confidence to do a online membership site. But I mean, it wouldn't cost that much to do a quick offline event like that. It wouldn't be that much extra time in planning. But it's just like, I don't know. That's one place where personally I have one foot on the brake. I'd like more traffic, joint ventures, local events. All right. So in what way do you sometimes have the self-sabotage and one foot on the brake? That's number one. Number two is, what are you really afraid of? And what sometimes stalls you out. So once again, I'm not asking you these kinds of things so that you'll feel bad and feel sorry for yourself and kind of dwell on it. But like, let's just be honest with what's the problem so that we know to either get through it or ignore it. So what are you really afraid of? And what sometimes stalls you out? Maybe you're afraid of taxes, right? Maybe you're afraid of getting too many. We hear that all the freaking time. What if everybody refunds? Well, if that's your issue, then write that down. Also, I'll tell you mine. What if my websites go down? I freak out about that sometimes. But you know what I've done to fix that? There is a site I'll share with you right now called uptimerobot.com. UPTIMEROBOT.com. That's not my site. I think there's a free level, and you have X number of alerts. Basically, you can set up this site where it will ping your site every 5 minutes or so, and as many sites as you want if you have multiple sites. And if the site goes down, it will email you, and if you have your email not hosted on your site, that'll help, like a Gmail account. It'll text message you. And the other thing that I've done for that are just a bunch of different backups, right? So I have a backup from my desktop. I have different backups from my websites. I'd rather have more backups than I need than not enough backups. So that's number two. What are you really afraid of, and what sometimes stalls you out? And just list like 2 or 3 things. Why 2 or 3 different things? If they're small things, if they're things that are easily identifiable, and not just like, I'm afraid I'll fail, but if you're afraid of taxes, if you're afraid of refunds, if you're afraid that everyone will hate you, well then you can just tackle just that one. And I mean, you can just tell even on this podcast, I'm not the best speaker. I am better than I used to be, all right? I do have kind of like a presenter voice type of thing. I've spoken from stage a few times. But what helped me was focusing on just one thing. I used to say all the time, like every other word. Then it was like every sentence. But I focused on just cleaning up the ums. And I said, I'll still be kind of scatterbrained, and I'll still do the whole say half a sentence and then go off in a different direction and say another half a sentence. I'll still talk too fast and slur my words, but I'll focus just on the ums, just on the likes. Cool, got that fixed. Then I'll work on slowing my speech down, even just 20%, so I'm still excited. I'm still talking as fast as I can think, or maybe a little slower, but I make sense, and I don't like go blah, blah, blah. I don't just come off like a babbling idiot, right? I slow it down a little bit. So just focus on just one little thing at a time, and it's not like everything will be fixed, but you can just get those little things out of the way. So that was number 2. What are you really afraid of, and what sometimes stalls you out? Here's a good one. Number 3. Why did you get started in the first place? So the reason I asked why you got started was because I want you to reconnect with what excited you back then that maybe you lost track of. So I know for me, when I was 15, 16 years old, I was reading some articles about how much a computer programmer, because I mean, I've wanted to be a computer programmer since I was like 12, right? And so that's what I wanted to do for a living. But I also wanted to maybe create some stuff, invent some stuff I didn't really know at the time. And I read these articles saying that, well, you're gonna max out at $40,000 a year if you're just a code monkey. And if you want to make more money, you're going to have to be more like an MBA, a manager, and then you can max it at maybe $100,000 a year. And that wasn't really exciting either. So I just started looking into, like, I was 16. Should I get like a job or internship? How do I make money? And can I make my own business? And that's what led pretty early on into internet marketing, and that led me to, I mean, I was still a programmer back then. I would program things for internet marketers. A marketer would say, I want a really simple autoresponder coded up because we didn't have them back then. Cool, I'll make that. Somebody said, I want you to make a quiz plugin for me. So somebody could come to my site, answer different questions, and then they would segment them to the correct email list. Awesome. I got paid for doing things like that. And what excited me back then was just being able to create something, and I really wanted to sell my own software, and that's what I do now. We have our high-ticket membership sites and coaching programs on things like how to do a webinar, how to make a website, and then plugins that do things like clone your site, make a sales letter, make a membership site. So why did you get started in the first place? And I mean, maybe for you it was like, you wanted to pay for your kids going to college. Maybe you wanted to pay for your own college. Maybe you wanted to travel the world. But most people I know lost track of why they got started in the first place. And then, we have some of our platinum students do really well. And our favorite one, we took him from, when he met us, he was making 6 figures per year. And we brought him very quickly to 6 figures per month by having him create membership sites to get that recurring income and to run pitch webinars to fill up those sites, and even doing paid webinars in the membership site so that the content was easy. And he wouldn't have been able to do any of that if he had his own hang-ups, if he didn't have his own internet game. And we're not always perfect, and like I said, it doesn't always last, and then we have to go back and say, well, what tool will I use to get myself out of this? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, about what tools to get you out of your rut. But it's important first just to take inventory, right? And figure out why you got started in the first place. That was question number 3. What excited you back then? Because it's too easy to everyday compromise. And like, take a tiny compromise, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and then in a year, you're not even close to where you started off. And you say, well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to, make software, and now what I'm doing is I'm writing articles. Well, that was a good start, but I don't want to write articles the rest of my whole dang life. I need something better. So number 4, what gets you excited to grow your business and do what really needs to be done? And I'm thinking about even early on, the first couple of years, like when I was in college, what was so cool was I'd be able to pull out $2,000 easily anytime I wanted to, which sounds like a braggy thing, but I mean, it's $2,000 isn't a lot of money. But I mean, it's more than most people, but it's kind of cool because I was able to just come up with an idea, right? And I'd say, well, I'm going to make a product about all these ways to make money as an affiliate, all these things you can add to your sales letter. And I would come up with an idea, usually on maybe a Friday or a Saturday or a Monday. And then a couple of days later, I would have the product done. The next day, have the sales page done. The next day, have the emails and stuff like that done. And then on the launch day, and usually I would launch 1 to 2 things per week, I would have everything ready. I would shoot out an email. I would come home from work. I had a day job back then. I would type up an email to my list, send the email, change clothes to go to the gym, check the computer before I left, and I would have about $1,000 in sales come in between sending that email and changing clothes. So kind of cool. Then I would go out to the gym, go meet my friends, lift some weights, do some cardio kind of stuff, come home, another $1,000, but then the launch would stop. But still, that was kind of cool. It was like money out of thin air. It's money that I guess I had to kind of work for it, but I was goofing around anyway. And it's something about like, if you having some kind of recurring income, it doesn't feel as much like work, right? It's like, you don't get paid per hour. It's not like you get paid for as how your sweat, right? It's like you set something up And there's a little bit of luck to it, but you set this thing up, you set up a sales letter, you have a way to take orders, whether it's one time or it's high ticket or it's low ticket or it's recurring, you have an upsell, you have an email list, you have all these little things you can measure, and then there's a certain element of luck in all that too, where it adds up to something that's money out of thin air, which is kind of a weird thing to talk about. But what I'm asking is, what gets you excited to grow your business and do what really needs to be done? And this must be a different, better, more detailed, and I guess more emotional answer to the last question, right? There's why did you get started? And when I got started, I didn't want to get capped at 30 grand, 100 grand a month, working under fluorescent lighting with people I didn't like. I wanted to work from home and kind of, if I wanted to take a day off and kick back, then great. If I wanted to put in 30 minutes in the morning and go to the river, go to the beach, great. And I do that all the time. If I wanted to go on a road trip, I could. And I do. So that's why I got started. But what gets me excited to grow my business is just making money in a thin air. And I know some people who they get excited about, being able to walk their kids to school, being able to live where they want. So the question is, what gets you excited to grow your business and do what needs to be done? Is it you want to have a bigger house, pay off your house, have a cool car? Let's think about what gets you excited, and not just necessarily money, because we don't want you to say, well, I want to make 100 grand a month. And then that's such a far off goal that making 1 grand a month is safe, because there's no way you'll ever get to 100 grand in your mind, at least, right? And we don't want you to have the goal of, well, I want to have a pile of money. I want to have $30,000, because then what ends up happening is we see people where they will sell off websites. They'll sell off sites that are making them good money. They'll have a site that's making them 10 grand a month, sell it for 30 and say, cool, I made 30 grand in a month. Yeah, but next 6 months you're making 0, right? Or they take on all this extra freelance work. Freelancing work is great. Great extra money. Go on Fiverr, go on Odesk. You make a lot of money, especially because they're quick jobs. You can have these things called upsells and all that. But if you take on a job for $10,000 and then it takes you 6 months of labor, that's a good start, but that's not a living. That's not sustainable. So what gets you excited to grow your business and do what really needs to be done? It must be a different, better, what do we say, emotional and detailed answer to that previous question. And then finally, based on all this stuff, right, we asked about how you self-sabotage so you can avoid that. We also asked about what are you afraid of so we can avoid that. Then we asked about what got you started so that you can kind of think about, well, that's why I'm doing this. We asked about what gets you excited, because that's what's keeping you going along every day. And now all this together, what do you really want to become a reality in the next 6 months? And this thing I'm going to keep private because I want this recording to be evergreen, this podcast. And so if you listen to this in 5 or 10 years, I don't want to say something that's current only in the year I'm recording this, if that makes sense. But for you, if you want to have your house paid off, if you want to quit your day job, if you want to have half your mortgage paid off, if you want to have a second car, if you want to have, braces for your little girl paid off, if you want to have a college fund for your son paid off, if you want to pay off your parents' mortgage, something like that, let's not think about just a number, and let's keep in mind that you might not hit the goal. This isn't the hell or high water kind of goal, but the question you're asking your brain, right, is how do I pay for little Susie's braces? So if it's $6,000, all right, that'll be the goal. Now, how do I break that down? And most marketers, at least the smart ones, at least the ones that think in programming kind of terms, the answer will usually be, all right, you need to make $6,000. So that could be 60 sales at $97. So now we're getting somewhere, right? Now it's a more easily attainable goal. Now we say, okay, I just need to make 60 sales. And if I need to pay this in 6 months, I just need to make 10 sales a month or 1 sale every 3 days. So now what do I do? Okay, I need to make 1 sale every 3 days at $97. Now I look at, what can I sell for that? What skills do I have? Am I going to make a course? And even at that point, do I provide coaching? Do I even do freelancing? You can make $6 grand for freelancing. Just don't work too many hours so you don't get the amount of money that you want, right? So then we can say, okay, well, one sale, $97 every 3 days. If I have a web page that's 2% converting, I just need to make this number of clicks, right? I just need to run a Facebook ad that brings in this number of clicks. I just need to buy solo ads that makes me this number of clicks. I need to talk to this, like 10 people a day, 5 people a day, get some affiliates mailing, and then I'll have that. And I mean, like I've been saying, I'm Robert Plank. I don't have it all figured out. But for some reason, at least for me, if I'm pursuing a goal that is not just money, but, well, in our business we need money, but there's a certain amount of money that something costs, and I need this money to get this reward, this thing, and not necessarily something that's like, frivolous, like, oh, I want to fly first class on such and such trip, but if you want that, it's great. But even something practical like wiping out whatever this debt is, right? If the goal is a thing that the money gets us, for some reason, that's a lot more exciting than a number in the bank account, right? So based on all these things, what do you want to become a reality in the next 6 months? A thing or activity, but not money. But I think if we're talking about you building your business, it should be something that the money allows you to do. And if it's quitting your job, and quitting your job means you need to have a certain amount of money in the bank, well then cool, that money allowed you to take that action, but it's like if the goal is just money on its own, it'll never be enough. But for some reason for me, if the goal is a thing that money gets you, then my brain immediately goes into, now how do I break down what needs to be done? If I need this amount of money in this amount of time, then how many sales of that will I need to make at what price point based on how many people I can get to a web page? Or if you say, if I write this number of sales letters at $1,000 a pop, I need to just write 6 sales letters. Or if I am going to make a graphic or a logo, I just need to sell this number of logos. Now that's a place that you can go to, as opposed to just saying, I want $1 million. I want a Ferrari, I want $100,000 a month, but then no real plan to get there. If it's something that will actually improve your life in the next couple months, is attainable very soon, then you can start breaking that down. So, I know it kind of went off on a tangent, but that's the 5-part checklist to understanding your own psychology. Question 1, in what way do you sometimes have one foot on the brake so you can overcome it? Question 2, what are you really afraid of and what sometimes stalls you out? Such as like if my websites go down or I get refunds or taxes or FTC gets on my butt. Number 3, why did you get started in the first place? What excited you back then and that maybe you lost track of that you want to get back? Number 4, what gets you excited to grow your business and do what needs to be done? And number 5, based on all of this, what do you really want to become a reality in the next 6 months? So, I mean, it's important to have that written goal. Actually write it down. Don't just have it in your head. Write it down. You don't have to share it with anybody. You don't have to post it on the wall. You don't have to make a dream board or a mind movie or that kind of goofy stuff. But just, write down what it is that you want to have. And, there's this book called Think and Grow Rich that I think I've mentioned it on this call before, but it's like it's one of those things where like all the successful people have read it, and the problem is you have to kind of wade through all the stuff about how it's all academic and like we interview over 20 years 200 billionaires and stuff like that. But the big thing about that, if I could just sum it up, is you have goals and have an imagination. Your imagination can work against you or for you. I'd rather it work for you, right? If your imagination works against you, you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong. You're thinking about your own story and about how everything's gone the wrong way, right? You feel like you're in a movie and you're at the end of it and everything sucks. But an imagination is like, well, what could happen? And then you could get into daydreaming and getting into leaving reality. But if you use your imagination to pick yourself up and to know what you want, and that way you can move towards that goal. I know it sounds kind of iffy and it sounds kind of generic, but you imagine this goal and what it is it will get you, and then you actually have the motivation to get there, and actually you'll start taking these steps to get there. You break down what needs to be done and do it. Sounds simple, but the thing is, now that we're kind of getting towards the end of this call, my question to you is, what's the first step that you can take today towards that goal, right? And I mean, if there was any kind of self-help, they'd say, well, if your goal is to get married, then you should go and sign up for a dating site today. Or they'd say, if your goal is to buy a boat, then you should go online or you should go to the boat dealership and just figure out what boats to go and get. And I mean, that's kind of the idea here, right? But we're talking about you building your online business. So, and and it might even be like something like, well, if your goal was to pay off your mortgage, maybe go to the mortgage the bank website and increase your payment. Overpay, and now you're paying more so that you're getting to that goal faster. But in your case, if it's this thing called an online business, and what you want to do is have a membership site online, and you want it to be making you a few $100s, a few $1,000 in a few months, then what's the step today? Get the site online, right? And the thing though is, it's easy to focus on what's fun that is also safe. So what's fun and safe? Coming up with a domain name. It's something you need. You need a .com name. But then if you say, I'm going to go and get some graphics made, I'm going to come up with a tagline. You don't need a tagline, but if you just got a domain name, a .com really quickly, and then got a web page on there with nothing else on it, and then made a buy button today, well, wow. That's more progress than most people make all month. Is you just have a website, nothing else on it but a button someone can buy. Well, now that's something can buy. It's easier to edit crap than air. So then you have the button where someone can buy, and then you can go tomorrow and make a headline. Then you can go the next day and get the actual membership site set up, but it's like, just get that first step today towards that goal, and that's why our 4DT, or 4 daily tasks, avoids burnout and builds momentum. Is like, you just do these small, simple tasks, right? And like I said, time management on crack.com, you do 4 things a day, just 4 things. One is 15 minutes, the other 3 are 45 minutes each, and sometimes you don't get them all done. You kind of got to get a better feel for yourself and calibrate. But if you do this, then you'll find that you'll do Facebook less, check your email less, Twitter less, text less, distractions less, to get what needs to be done to get to your goal. What also helps, like I said, again, is that this it loses effectiveness after a while. You get too used to it. You have to switch gears. So then what helps is, I'll do things like, I have a program called Cool Timer. I'll pop up a countdown timer on the screen. I have a mentor, I have a mastermind. I'll meet with them and figure out how to get unstuck from where I'm at. And even if that fails, like, okay, so there was a month where my business partner was gone, out of commission, and I had to motivate myself. So what I did was, every day I would, and it's not like I meet with him every day. I meet with him like once a week, a couple times a week. But just to make sure I was on the freaking ball, every morning I would get to my computer. I would turn on what's called Camtasia Recorder. I would record my screen, and I would say, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I would post the video on a private site of ours so you could go look at it later. But just to get that going, just to get that momentum. So real quick, as we're closing this call down, what gets things done, right? How do you get to where you want to go? Here are some quick tools. Willpower, it's kind of iffy, right? Kind of fickle, but some days just waking up in a good attitude and having a good morning routine, that'll get you done, right? So just get up, wake up, take a quick walk around the block, take a quick run, go and get that coffee, just to basically change the channel and get the juices flowing, get the blood pumping so that you can actually, get in the right mindset. This thing called a mentor, especially if it's a mentor where you're not crying to them and you actually have to behave yourself, right? And I mean, what I mean by that is I've known people who are, when they talk to me one-on-one, they're crybabies, right? And they'll kind of put, should I say this? I will. They'll put me in a position to have to chase them around or have to defend the thing I told them to do. It's like they came to me saying, I don't have money, how to make money. I say, do this thing to get traffic, to build a list, and then they start arguing with me and making me justify to them why they should build a list. It's like, I shouldn't have to justify it. But then the same person goes to get coaching in a group environment, and they won't act that way. They won't be a baby because they have to behave for everyone else. So you kind of like having a mentor where you're on your best behavior and you actually know what you want, right? You don't have to be convinced that what you want is money, website, list, traffic. You have a problem. like our best platinum students, the ones that got the most results, the ones that still get the most results, the ones that say, my problem is this. This site is broken. How do we fix this site? I'm going to send out this mailer. How does it look? So you're looking for a simple solution to an easily explainable problem. Another tool that helps me is just a system, right? And so if you're the kind of person where you need to just kind of take a break and read a book for 30 minutes and then you're back in the game, do that. I've been using an iPhone app called Lyft, where basically it's all about just like the daily tasks and that momentum. And basically you can set things that you want to do every day. And I have things on my phone, like one is like take a vitamin, one is go for a walk. I only have usually 2, maybe 3, so I don't like have a big checklist. You don't want another to-do list, but it's just like, okay, like taking a walk. Cool, I'll check that off, and it rewards you for, if you do that, 5 days in a row, 10 days in a row. There are different things that you can cycle through, like I mentioned today. You do just 4 things. You record yourself doing the thing that you should do. You go and call a mentor. And even I've done things like I've just texted people, right? I've just said, all right, I just knocked out this one thing, send a text. Feel good about sending a text. Want to feel even better to do task number 2. Do task number 2, send a text saying I did task number 2. And just by there's all these mind tricks. And that's what it comes down to. Is this inner game, like we said, there's inner game, there's outer game, right? Outer game is copywriting, salesmanship, putting yourself out there, getting traffic, making money. And the inner game is you. As you being held up about, I kind of doubt this or that. I don't have confidence. What if this? What if that? And you need to get over it. And, you're the only one who can do it. No one else can force you. No one else can motivate you to do it. And I'm hoping, and I know that for a lot of you listening today, this is the most important wake-up call, so to speak, you've gotten about getting your head on straight, getting what needs to be done, overcoming burnout, overcoming procrastination, and getting to whatever that goal is, whatever you personally are hung up on. Most people don't get it, right? Most people are employees, or they think, well, you're just the misunderstood genius. Well, that's cool. I think I get it, right? I'm one of you. I'm one of you internet marketer, entrepreneurs, and sometimes I get stuck in a rut too. I have low confidence sometimes too. I get burned out, or I sometimes don't know what to do next. And a lot of it is just having the right tools, or even identifying and writing down what the problem is, breaking it down, what don't you want, what do you want, and let's just leave it at that. And it's a process. It's not like there's a magic pill you can take to overnight just quickly fix everything. But if things aren't working, if you're going down the wrong path, it might be time to change. And I'm hoping that today, this self-help for internet marketers and entrepreneurs call gave you what you needed to do. Whether that's holding your next seminar, whether that's getting some traffic going, whether that's getting pumped up for a webinar, finishing that sales letter, getting that article written, sending out that email, building the list, making that phone call, whatever it is, just do it. Make it one of your 4 tasks today. Make it the first thing you do as soon as you get off this call, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Robert Plank Show, episode 40, Self-Help for Internet Marketers and Entrepreneurs. Have a great day. I know you will. I'll talk to you later.